Hello, my dear podcast friends. This is Dr. Christine Lee, and I am already laughing here with my good friend, Michelle Fernandez, who you will love. She is a delight of a woman, person, professional, mother. She's got all the things going on, and I can't wait for you to learn from her today. I brought Michelle on because she embodies for me so many different pieces of success, and she has a very success oriented mindset and way about her. And I wanted you to hear about her journey, her story, her successes, and what she has to teach you today. So, welcome to the show, Michelle.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I know. And I will tell you what, the first time that we met at the conference, we were sat next to each other, right? And I
Yep.
was so drawn to you. And I always tell you how warm you are. You could tell like you're listening to me. And I just felt like we did have this great connection. And then come to find out, our children go to the same college, right? We were like, this is so weird. You're in New York, I'm in Florida. And it's like, wait, how did we? And it's like, we were definitely meant to connect, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I remember that moment well. So it's been great knowing you over the years, being on your podcast, watching you develop your business and practice and enjoy life in the process. So, could you
Mm-hmm.
start our listeners off with just a description of where you are now, what you're doing with your business, what you're specializing in, so they have a place to envision what you're doing with your work right now?
Yeah. Okay. So I do have a marketing agency. I'm a full service marketing agency. So we create strategic Facebook and Instagram ad campaigns, and as well as build out highly converting funnels for course creators, online experts, things like that, coaches. So they can really like not only sell out their offers because hello, but the bottom line is that you need this exposure to live this crazy cool life. Because when I first started working this career, I would tell my coach, I remember specifically where we were in Seattle at this retreat, and we were sitting around like after day one or something having drinks, and I said, oh my gosh, you need to be up here in my head, because up here in my head, I live this crazy cool life. Like everybody wants to live there. And she's like, why is it living in your head? I'm like, I don't know. That's why I'm here with you. Right. So it's like, whenever I say crazy cool life is because I know what that looks like for me. And I know everybody has their own crazy cool life that they want to live. Right. So I know in order to get there, you need that exposure, and you need to, have more traffic, more eyeballs on your stuff. And that's how I ended up where I am today.
Terrific. I like that story that we all have a big vision in
Yes.
our hearts and our heads, and that without our driving energy and attention to that vision, it will stay in our head. So
Yes.
I've enjoyed watching you talk about your journey of creating your vision and making it come to life, and
Mm-hmm.
also helping other people find theirs. So,
Mm-hmm.
can you bring us back to a point where you were
There was no vision.
there was no vision, there was maybe a little more self-doubt than you needed? Let us know
Mm.
about that part of your life.
Oh my gosh. So it is kind of saddening, and I'm lucky and I'm happy to say that I can actually get through it without getting teary eyed to this day. But so if we rewind back, I was in the mortgage industry for 30 years. And I worked with my mom. So it was a mom daughter shop. And even though she owned the business, I pretty much was running it with her, right? And then about 22 years ago, I had my twins, right? So at the time, I was really like, oh, I really love to stay home with the kids, like every new mom wants to be and spend this time and don't want like a nanny. And I hated calling her a nanny, but really that's what she was, somebody that babysit during the day, because I always thought, oh my God, they're going to love her more than me and that whole thing. But at that time, there was really only a teacher, which living in Miami, you cannot afford to live off of a teacher's salary. And then you had pharmaceutical reps. So I did explore both options. However, they were not appealing for its own reasons, right? So fast forward a little bit, my both of my grandparents, what my grandfather passed away, and then my grandmother got sick and was in the hospital. And I remember saying to my mom, you know, it's sad that neither one of us can be sitting with her because we're both here having to work, right? And I remember at that specific time saying, my gosh, like now I'm trapped in this thing. I would love to spend time with my grandmother. My son at 5 years old had to have like a series of surgeries. So it was like I was working in the hospital, or, it was like this whole thing that I'm like, oh, this is creating such, but again, trapped. I get exposed to workouts, which was ended up being an NMLM company. And that's when I discovered this digital world. I discovered what's possible for us to do that gave me flexibility, but then still doing this time. But then I would wake up every morning with this, like, I'm stuck working this 9 to 5. I'm never going to do this. Like, literally, I get up before my husband, and by the time he would get up and I'm putting my makeup on, like, I would be there crying. He's like, what's your problem? I'm like, I'm such a loser. Like, I'm never going to do this. I'm 40 something years old now. I'm never going to, and it's a horrible feeling to live in, like feeling so, what is the word I'm looking for? Where it's like you're just stuck, like you're just settling. That's the word. You're settling for the way things are. And it's like, you were meant for more. And it's like, how do you find that? And that's what I love about this. And that's what I love about even what I do is when I hear someone's vision and to turn into their thought of what their program is or what they can offer to their potential customers, and to actually make it a tangible thing and see people now in the program and see that. It's just to watch that. Like, I'm getting goosebumps right now because I know what that was like to sit there and like, okay, I have this idea, but like, how do I build it? How do I do it? Like, what are the processes to take to get out of that settling? And I think for me, since I was older and then now looking at all the 20, 30 somethings that are in these programs, that I'm like, oh my gosh, I would always look at it like they have all this time and my time is limited because I turned 50 this year. So I was like, oh my God, I'm only going to be working or alive for all these thoughts come into your mind. So it was difficult for me. It was very depressing. There were days I didn't get out of bed because I just felt like, what do I do? Not even realizing that getting into bed was not going to make anything happen. But it just felt like so much better to just kind of check out and like avoid doing all the things. Have you ever felt that way at all? Like,
I am not a crawl into bed kind of person. I think
mhm,
I go in the other direction. I think when I'm upset, I tend to kind of pile it on and bring
mhm.
even more in, but that doesn't help.
Oh,
That's not a good
exactly. Because then you go to the other extreme of, well, and
Yes.
it's funny that you say that because then I was like, all right, because once I discovered and I was exposed to like coaching, like I didn't even know that was a thing, right? And I remember being, it was for network marketing. And I went to this live event. It was like $97, but then you got your money back when you showed up. So I'm like, oh, it's basically free. I could totally put out $97. And then they pitched to 20,000. I think it was $18,000 at the time. And my husband was with me, and I was like, there's no way he's going to let me invest that much money. Like, I'm like, really, what am I going to get? But as we sat there together at the event, because I did make him come because I wanted him to support me. And the only way that I knew he could support me is if he got exposure to what was going on and have a better understanding of it. And he also knew the way I was feeling inside, and he wanted me to feel more confident or more fulfilled in life, or to not have to go to the 9 to 5. Like, even during the holidays, I remember when the kids had off, and he's a fireman, so he had time off. And so here I was at work, and they're going to the movies or going to here, and I remember that those feelings of like, am I ever going to spend time with my kids? Like, or when I did, I was exhausted from work, right? Well, anyway, when we were at the event, I totally wanted to sign up. And I was like, okay, how do I get him? I'm like, I'm going to convince him to realize that he's seeing it on his own. But he did bring it up. He goes, okay, so are you going to sign up? And I was like, this is a big commitment. We literally, when I paid the deposit, we left with like 50 cents in our bank account until the next pay period. But so it was like, this is something we had to do, but it's all about finding that person that's going to guide you, right? And that's really what gave me the hope and learning the skills that I need to learn to do what I'm doing today.
Mhm. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story. I don't think I've heard the exact details, all the different details
Yes.
in there, but I find myself wanting to hear more about the part of you that knew that you were settling. And could you
Hmm.
talk about what was coming up for you and how did you know I could make something bigger or better for me work out? What was that dialogue that you had with yourself?
Yes. It's funny that you say dialogue because I do talk to myself quite often. Those inner conversations, that mean girl that I literally had to learn to just like flick off my shoulder and like turn the volume down because she still comes out every now and then, but it's not even close. So when I was looking at settling, it was like my health was deteriorating. So I was sick all the time because I was so like I was making myself sick, I really think. And we were living paycheck to paycheck. So it was financially, just whatever. We since being in the mortgage industry, like 2008 when the market crashed, like that set us back, right? So that's like kind of how we were living. And I remember keep saying as the years were going by, like, how am I ever going to get ahead? How am I ever gonna? It wasn't even how, it was like, I'm never going to. So everything
Mhm.
was coming from that space of lack because there was no evidence showing me. And as we know, the more you dwell on what you don't want, you get more of what you don't want, right?
Yeah, correct.
So I was feeling that. So it was the health, the finance, really the freedom and the control over my own self and my own life, right? So it was kind of like I knew there had to be a way or an opportunity for me to really just be in control and for me to decide how much money I'm going to make, for me to decide if I'm going to take this time off and not really either have to ask anybody or a way for me to switch, like kind of get my schedule to be what I wanted it to be. So I actually had a procedure done and I was home. Like I had to take like 2 months off after. And I remember I got this. Do you know who Shalene Johnson is?
I do.
Okay. So she was selling this program because I knew her from through Beachbody, right? Because I did her workouts. And she was selling this program called Smart Success. And I said, perfect. I'm going to be home with nothing else to do. I did make my husband go through it with me because it was certain things that you wanted out of life. And that really opened my eyes to what is possible. Like, because I really just think I had no clue. Like for me, I grew up with, and it's like you work a 9 to 5, you work it for however many years, so you have your retirement or whatever that was. It wasn't any of these options that all the young people have this today. So I think it was just that exposure of I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like I do have control, and now is the time to do it. Because if I continue to live like this, I'm going to be 60 or 70 years old, and this is where I don't want to be at this age. It was like I just made the decision like I can either crawl back in bed or I can say I don't want to be in the same position this time next year, this time next month, right? As long as I'm progressing, then I know I'm going to get where I'm going. So it was a struggle to do that and push through it. But I think that was the turning point where it was just like, I was sick and tired. I put my body in this ground and I'm like, it was almost like rock bottom. And I'm like, really, did I have to wait to get to this? But I did, you know? I did.
Yes. Yes. Thank you again for sharing. And I just want to pause here to emphasize what you're teaching because you're teaching uh, us a lot of things, but you're teaching us about the power of thinking positive thoughts for yourself, thinking yourself through to the next phase of your life, and that covering yourself with negative beliefs, probably negative false beliefs, is just going to weigh you down and make the current not good situation feel even worse. And it sounded like hitting that bottom allowed you to say, okay, now's the time. I have the space, I have the power, and I have the next few steps in front of me because of coaching and just having a mindset that this is possible. That's the
Mm-hmm.
first thing that we need to do when we want to make a significant change is believe in ourselves and believe in the possibility that it can happen for us. So thank
Mm-hmm.
you for that important lesson, which is why I did bring you on the show because I knew you
Yes.
could deliver there.
And
You
it's
wanted
funny
to
that
say
you
something?
say that because I do on like it did take me a minute, but I literally said, we just talked about this before we hopped on. Nobody is a magical unicorn. If one person that you know can is capable of doing something, you can too. There's no reason at all other than you not taking the actions you need to take for that to get done. Right? So it's possible. You have the evidence. Why not you? Right? So you just gotta go for it, you know?
Agreed. Now, I'm going to ask you what happened after you decided, let's do this. Let's build this.
Mm-hmm.
And did the self-doubt come back?
Totally. Totally. And I have to say that it did. And it was like ebbs and flows, right? So the Dunning-Kruger effect, have you ever experienced that?
I have experienced that. I think I'm a high experiencer of that. Could you explain that to our followers?
Yes. So I did not know this was a thing until I think last year. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, this was totally me all these years. So picture like a scale and it's like an L. So the top to bottom is your confidence, right? And then right to left is your competence, right? Your skills. So when you first learn something, your confidence going high and you're like, yes, I got this. But then as you're learning more and you're like, wait a minute, this is more than I thought it was, or this is harder than I thought it was. So your confidence drops because you're becoming more competent. But if you choose to move through it, then your confidence starts going back up. But what happens is most people, including myself, was like, oh my gosh, this feels crappy. I don't want to feel this lack of confidence. So now I'm going to go after a new niche. Or, okay, now my confidence drops. Okay, now I'm going to change my offer. Okay, no, no, no. Okay, now I'm going to change my avatar. Da-da. So you keep trying to go after that confidence. It's only if you choose to that uncomfortableness, that awkwardness, that, oh my God, that imposter syndrome that we all face at some point in time, that we move through, then we become up and we become world class at whatever it is that we're doing. And I think that I was doing that. I know I was doing that the whole entire time because I just wanted to feel, I thought that's what confidence was, right? I wanted to feel that way, not realizing that I needed the competence. I needed to become more of a master. I just kept saying, oh, well, this is going to take me forever. But then what happens? You end up being the jack of all trades and the master of none. And then it's like, well, how does somebody know that they're going to come to work with you if they don't really know what you're doing because you're doing 100 things, you know? But the whole confidence thing, I think where it came down to is I had to become more self-aware of when these things were happening, self aware of when these negative thoughts were coming into my mind. And I was listening to that mean girl and telling me, trying to protect me from doing anything new, right? And getting out there and just saying, no, 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 this is what I need to go through in order to get this. Yes, to go on live video, I'm going to be nervous. I'm probably going to fumble my words or I'm going to do whatever. And that's okay. Like, it's not the end of the world type of thing, you know?
Absolutely. Thank you for that second lesson, which is great. Dunning-Kruger is basically self-doubt in a graph, right? And
Yes.
we have to know that just because we're doubting ourselves, that's not a sign or indication that we lack competence
Hmm.
or even confidence. It's just a syndrome. So, thank you for sharing that principle. And let's have our listeners tuck that away so that
Mm-hmm.
they recognize the next time they feel frightened of something, daunted
Yes.
by something, held back by that mean girl or mean boy voice
Mm-hmm.
in their hearts and minds, that they can actually still continue and
Mm-hmm.
find the win, find the rewards, find the accomplishment, find the finish line, even,
Mm-hmm.
because that's satisfying in itself and a confidence builder. So don't
Mm-hmm.
deprive yourself of these great opportunities to learn, to experience, to be scared, and
Mm-hmm.
to grow your competence and confidence. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I honestly feel if you're not feeling the fear, then you're not doing enough. You're not playing big. And you need to not only get on the field to play, but you need to play big. So if you're just like coasting through and you're like, this is a piece of cake, I could, you're doing something wrong. Because I think, no, honestly, I think that you can still know your stuff. And I could tell you there's these big influencers out there, they have to feel some sort of fear at each level, right? It's just a natural thing. It's just how you choose to move through it and how you choose to deal with it. That is going to get you to that next level because I think this just is all fearful.
Yes, yes. So now I want to shift our conversation a little bit to one of my
Okay.
favorite topics, which is habits,
Oh,
because
yes.
I know you're a big fan of habits too. So could
Yes.
you share with us a few habits that have helped you to stay the course,
Hmm.
to grow your business and your confidence, and still have time to enjoy the children, your husband, your life outside of work?
Hmm. So one habit that I never did and is not just a morning routine, right? Because everybody's like morning routine, blah, 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 workout and this and that. And I will say it varies, but it is something, a way to kick off my day and or include in my day, whether it's in the morning or in the evening. I definitely make sure that I get things in. And that is one of the main things besides, working out and all that stuff is filling your mind with the stuff that you need to hear, whether it be listening to a podcast, whether it be reading a book or whatever you need to be doing, constantly filling your mind. And I will tell you, I remember back when we first started, I would listen to Brendan Bouchard. He had this podcast. Now I think he's changed it, but I remember every morning driving to work, I would listen to that and I would come home or I would call my husband and I'd be like, oh my God, Brendan's talking to me. He's like speaking to me and everything that I'm going through. And it was like months and months. And all of a sudden it hit me that, hey, he's not just talking to me. Other people are going through these things too. And then that was when I realized, okay, this is normal. I am doing a normal thing, right? So it's the same thing because, like I said, every day you can be having a sales call or you can be giving a presentation or something that you're nervous about. And you're like, well, wait, can I really do this? Am I the expert? Am I the authority? So and so knows better than me. But when you're listening to this and you're filling your head, it just reminds you of all the stuff that you know that you are and that you know you are meant to be. And you show up in your day and during these events so different. So that is one habit, however you choose to do this, but definitely fill your head with the things that you need to be, right? Another habit, especially when it comes to business, is I have my systems and I follow them to a T. People go to AT, I'm like, you didn't check that box. You didn't mark the statuses. Because when you have these systems in place and make it a habit of actually kind of fulfilling it on them and going through and following the step by steps, it just relieves. You don't have to think like, did I forget something? Well, no, if you went through, you got it. And then now you're like, for me, and I hear these horror stories and I'm like, I can't even believe this happens. Like for somebody's ads and they're launching, they've had their ads managers forget that they were launching and then the ads didn't start. And I'm like, what? So if you have it all written down in your calendar and everything in place, then you can go with confidence knowing that you are on track, you're doing all the things, and it's just less taxing on your mind. Like, did I get this done? What else do I have coming? You have everything mapped out for sure. And with family, I'm really making a point into putting time aside. right? Like, okay, guys, we love watching reality TV, or MTV has the challenge. It's something like we all sit down and watch, okay, we're going to watch this tonight. We're going to watch Real Housewives, or just making the point of not allowing work to get in the way. It's like, okay, I'm going to stop my day at whatever time, and the rest of the time is just either for me to just check out, be with the family, be with my husband, do all those things. Because then you feel like you're enjoying life more, right? It's just not every day runs into each other. And I think that creating that habit has helped me like enjoy life more, if that makes
Yes,
sense.
it definitely makes sense. And I think pre-planning and setting limits to how much
Hmm.
work occupies our lives and those are incredible habits. So thank you for teaching us even more. Now, I would like you, please, to talk about the feeling of success and where your company has come and what kind of freedom and
Hmm.
confidence it has given you. Tell us where you've taken your company and also how
Hmm.
people can work with you. So we're
Oh,
at that
okay.
point too.
Okay, so all right. So I did not want to run Facebook ads for people. I remember when I was in this, the first first mastermind that I was in was really group coaching, and I really learned all about digital marketing, attraction marketing, Facebook ads, and then when I joined other groups, people would say, "Oh my gosh, how come you're getting these results? I want to get those results too." And I would be like, "Well, you can just learn how to do it like I did." It wasn't that I realized that not everybody has the same skills, right? And or even if they could, they don't want them because their brains just don't work the same way, right? Um, and I remember one of my masterminds, this one girl, she just kept on with me. Michelle, you got to do this. You got to do this. I'm like, listen, this is not my jam. This is not what I want to do. And I remember like sitting apart from her so I didn't have to hear it anymore. And now I couldn't be more grateful because she saw something in me that I did not see in myself, which is so special, which is why you should be part of these group things that, masterminds or coaching programs and stuff. And even if you are a coach, that you're facilitating this for other people is just amazing, right? So then I just gave it a try. And at that time, I was charging like, I felt like I can't charge a lot for this because I am not the expert. I can only do this for myself. I can't do it for other people. And then here I am today, a couple years later, and I got like a full book of business helping people not only with their campaigns, but with their funnels, with their offers, having 6, sometimes 7-figure launches. It's just like I even am amazed at myself sometimes because of the self-doubt. Like when I go to get on the call, I get all nervous and I'm like, no, I think I could do this. This is going to be good. And then as I'm talking, sometimes like when I'm hearing the words come out of my mouth, I'm like, why are you downing yourself, Michelle? Right? Like give yourself some credit. And then it allows me to just really dive in and not hold anything back with the ideas that I have to help people. And that's really where I'm at, where I'm like, I'm not looking at you as my client. I'm looking at who you serve and then who they serve. It's almost like that ripple effect that I really take it serious, that I'm like helping people beyond who's just in my book of business. And I think that's what contributes to my success because I'm seeing it as such a bigger picture. I don't put all the weight even on the revenue that I'm generating. It's about how many people that I'm helping. Um, Another huge thing that I don't think we talked about when we're talking about success for me to get more confidence in that was detaching the emotion from the outcome, right? That was huge for me. And that was very difficult for me to do because I'm like, yeah, sure, you're saying that, but who's going to pay the bills? like. But as soon as I did that, everything just shifted. Everything shifted. So if that's something, a habit that you can create, I would definitely suggest that. So yeah, so now I work with, 6, 7-figure entrepreneurs and they trust me. And I would have never thought that a couple years ago that somebody of that caliber is going to trust me with their growth, with them filling up their programs. So that is pretty cool to actually recognize where you come from, right? Or even if it's just one thing, what are you celebrating every day, every week? Whether it be something small or big, you got to celebrate that in order to build your confidence for sure.
Yes, thank you so much. It has not been that long since we met at the conference and wondering what we were possibly doing there and what we were
Yes.
going to learn. So grateful to have witnessed your journey and to be learning from you. I want to mention that Michelle has this beautiful podcast, the Traffic and Conversions Show. She's
Yes.
a beautiful host. You can hear how much joy and warmth she has in conversation too. And she's got so much to teach us. And I'm just excited to see where you take everything next. Could you please
Thank you.
tell us, you're welcome, how our listeners can follow you, stay in touch with you,
Yeah. So
work
I'm
with you?
everywhere. At my podcast, like you said, is the Traffic and Conversion Show. And then you can find me everywhere at Michelle Fernandez. So on Instagram, Facebook, and also my website is themichellefernandez.com.
I love you, Michelle.
Love you too.
Thank you for coming on. Any last
Yeah.
words for our listeners?
No, I just say, well, first of all, I love you. So whatever she says, listen and follow. Do what Christine tells you to do.
Thank you.
Um, and I love that you're coming from the confidence side and what we were talking about today, because it is difficult, right? It is challenging. And I remember sitting at that first, event that we're sitting together. I was not even in Facebook ads back then. Like I was in something else and really struggling of what I wanted to do. What would be, I felt like I had to pick the perfect thing or what I was good at. And I remember even for me, they were saying, oh, whatever you've been doing, teach that. And I thought, I don't want to teach mortgages, right? Where if you're in this particular situation where you're kind of like, I don't know what I want to do, trust that whatever, everything's working in your favor and it will happen in due time, right? You just got to continue to show up and know and trust that it's going to be happening, I think is the best advice that I can
I
give.
think that is wonderful advice. Thank you for sharing so many brilliant pieces of wisdom and knowledge and stuff we have been learning together too over the years with our listeners so generously. And I just encourage our listeners to go follow Michelle and learn from her too. And thank you so much again. And our dear listeners, I will see you here back again next week. Thanks for being here on the Make Time for Success podcast. Bye.